Okay, it is July 18th. Very, very hot today. Hot and humid. They're talking about heat index into triple digits, but I'm still going to get out here and make some progress. There's only so much I can do, and it's fairly early in the morning yet, and not at as hot as it's going to get, but still in the morning the sun shines right in this garage, so it's already not feeling too good. Sorry about the fan noise, but I'm not turning them off. Today, what I plan to do is get this wet sanded down again. I've already, after I primered it last time, I blocked it down with 80. Most of the deep 36 grit scratches and low areas were blocked out. There's still a few, so I gave it some more of the Evercoat Featherfill primer, except I used a different color, which is called Buff. Actually, I accidentally ordered or bought the wrong color. I didn't pay attention to what was written on the can, but I think it's actually better because the gray, as you can see where my guide coat's being sanded away, the gray shows up better on it. And when I get all of this stuff out, I'm blocking it down with 180 right now. I have this block for good flat surfaces, and when I have an area where I need a little flexibility, I roll up a paint stick, and that's good for areas to where, see, like right here, the body, they curve down anyway. It's not, everything's not perfectly squared, never was originally. So if you would take that flat block and try to get all of this out, you're going to end up breaking through your primer again. So I get most of it out that I can with a good flat block, and for a few areas, see, like right here, I can take this and hopefully, I'm going to try to do this one-handed. I'm not going to film sanding this whole thing. I'm just kind of showing you what I do here. As you can see, since that's flexible, it's taking that gray out of there. See that right there? And you can see all my 80 grit scratches going away. Get it to where it's nothing but that cream colored primer, or Buff as the can says. Hard to do, a little awkward one-handed, but I'm just showing you what I'm doing today. See, I broke through to the black there. And after I get all this done, you can see my 80 grit scratches here where I went over with the flat block. And after I get all this out of here, I should hopefully be ready to give it probably about 2 coats of surface primer in black, and then a guide coat will go over top of it after it's dry. I usually wait like a day before I even put the guide coat in, because I don't want the guide coat to soak into the black primer while it's still, still not cured. And maybe it wouldn't, but I don't want to take no chances on that. But anyway, that's what this weekend's going to be, getting this block back down, ready for final primer. Probably we'll spray it in the morning. Maybe if I get on it and stay on it, I can keep all these fans on it and have it dry by tonight and shoot it tonight. And then maybe I can get under here tomorrow and paint the underside with 415. And then, while that last coat of primer is curing, however long it takes, probably be by next weekend before I get to start blocking it down, I'm going to get to prepping the inside of this bed for the bed liner. So we're getting close to where we're going to actually start showing some progress from our work. Right now we're at the stage where we're just block sanding and getting it straight. Feels like you work all day and it looks the same, but that's when you start getting that's when you start getting more motivated, is when you get to the point to where you're finishing certain parts of it up and you're seeing some permanent results, like the bottom side painted, the bed liner. And I'm not sure if I'll spray the bed liner before final sanding or after. I'm kind of worried, since I like the wet sand, because it makes less of a mess as far as dust goes. I'm kind of worried of it soaking into my new bed liner, staining it permanently. So I may wet sand it down for the final time, get it ready for paint, and then cover it with plastic before I spray my bed liner. So we'll see. A lot of work to do, time consuming, so probably take longer than I thought as usual. But I'm going to do all this, and the rest of this video I might show some spraying, whether I do it tonight or tomorrow. Alright, back to it. Alright, about an hour and a half later, I just decided to turn the camera back on and just give you an idea how long it takes to get all the little spots you can find out. Like 180 grit, as you can see, it broke through to the black, and got metal showing right there, but that's okay. I mean, it's straight, feels good and flat. Don't feel no waves. Everything's feeling good. Honestly, I could probably have final sanded this and painted it, and it'll look good, but I wanted to be sure. I mean, I didn't want to paint it and find a bunch of stuff I wish I fixed. But like, little bitty spot, I don't know if you can see it, right there, that's like a little chip. And you want to find stuff like that. That probably, you'd have to look pretty close to find that under paint. But if you really knew where it was at, or if you really had an eye for it, you'd probably see it. Just right up in here. A little tricky. You got to make sure you don't get the edges of your block or sanding stick to where it makes a ridge right there, but that feels good and smooth. But just kind of give you an idea how long it takes just to do that area. And wind slammed the door, and shame of it is I'll be primering back over it, and then I'll go back over it with I'm not sure, I think 400 grit, maybe 600. I need to look up the instructions on my paint. I have some PPG Deltron DBU. I think I got all my reducers and everything needed, activators with it. It's an older paint. I bought this on eBay quite a while ago. I'll probably have to test the small piece to make sure the stuff is good. I hope so. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't as expensive as buying from a store, but a guy on eBay had them like $300 a gallon. I think it's more than that if you buy it directly from PPG. Not sure. It's base coat, clear coat. I think a lot of people like the urethane one stage now, and I wish I'd have waited before I bought all that paint. And I wish I would have went with urethane single stage now. It's easier to work with. It's kind of like spraying enamel. Not as picky when you sand your surface. Covers up mistakes better. Tiny mistakes I'm trying to find, like this one I just showed you. But I probably won't turn the camera back on until it's ready, at least till it's ready to spray. Just want to give you an idea of what it takes to get all the imperfections that you can find out of there. And it'll never be perfect. Nothing is perfect. You finally get to a point where you say, good enough. There's more stuff I would probably could fix, but it's going to look great, and you just got to settle for that. Okay, now it's Sunday morning, July 19th. Everything's sanded down, and I dried it off, pressure washed the floor, and we had one little low spot out of all of it that I could not get out without sanding too deep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a tiny little batch of lightweight filler and smooth it down with a very flat, sharp edge, something like a razor blade. And when you wet sand, you get a little, wherever you break through, you get a little surface rust. That's okay. I can touch them up with some dry paper before I spray. So I'm going to take care of that real quick. And it's ready for about, I don't know, I'll give it 2 or 3 coats of Evercoat Feather Fill. It's a filler and surfacer. A lot of people don't like to use it as surface primer. They claim you can. We're going to find out. So far, well, I did this a long time ago, and which has been sitting in the garage too. But nothing fell off or cracked out like some people claim. I think they're talking about a different brand. I don't know, that is used for only filling. But this is supposed to be a dual purpose, and I really like it because it fills in some deep spots. It's a good filler. So let's get to that. I just touched up everything I could find with a little bit of body filler. There's how thin of a layer I put on it. That was an actual tiny little chip. No way I will find all of those, but those are so small, probably wouldn't even see them after painting, hopefully. So all you gotta do is that, and boom, it's filled. Filled with it. You can still see the gray, but that Bondo is so thin, it's kind of transparent. So you see a little bit of gray right there. Now I gotta touch up these rusty surface rust spots, and once I go over all them, I'll be ready to spray. Okay, all my tiny little spots that I could find are touched up. All the little rusty spots are scuffed away. Also kind of radiused these holes here because this was all beat up, and there is some body filler to straighten that up. And I kind of cleaned that up and radiused those corners there. So next thing I'm going to do before I go to spraying, always take like a wax and grease remover. It's mostly before you paint, but it's not a bad idea to wipe it down with that, with a fresh clean towel or rag before you spray anything, because it makes sure all your dust is gone. As you can see, even though I cleaned it last night, there's a little dust there, and it's kind of like you're dusting it with a wet rag. And any fingerprints, grease from your fingerprints, or just natural oil from your body, you don't want that on the surface you're going to spray. So we're going to wipe it down, and I'm going to figure out where to put the camera, and we're going to give this about, I don't know, about 3 coats. Okay. I don't know if I covered this on my videos from when I started working on this truck. We're doing body work on it a long time ago. Then of course I quit for a while. But I'll go ahead and cover a little bit of mixing this Evercoat feather fill up. The filler, surfacer, primer, as they call it. And when you open the can up new, which I've already used some of this, so it's already stirred up pretty good. I've used about that much of it. When you open it up new, stir it good, because about that much of the bottom of the can is full of a thick paste. You almost can't get your stick down into it, and you just gotta take your time. If you don't have a paint shaker, stir it up really good. This is already stirred up pretty nice. And they claim you mix it, the can recommends you mix it with acetone. And I've already got some on me. I should be wearing rubber gloves. Stretch it out a little bit. Thin it too much. I usually go with 2 parts primer and 1 part thinner. And I recommend, and I'm sitting there, you spill it, And they recommend you use acetone. And I don't have much other point. And acetone does seem to work better than lacquer thinner. So I'm going to fill this about 2/3 of the way up. I don't have a measuring cup, I'm just guessing. I like to mix it up first in a separate container. These coffee cups work pretty good because actually after it dries, it's got a slick surface inside and it doesn't stick to it very good. And you can blow it out and reuse them if you don't have any extras. I don't mind drinking a little bit of coffee every now and then, so I've got plenty of these laying around too. And you're supposed to add a hardener. Here's my hardener right here. They give you 4 of these per gallon. You have to poke a little hole in it. I like to use a tiny drill bit, works better. They made these a little easier to poke a hole in. They're kind of tough. And I'm mixing probably, I'm guessing a quart. They recommend one of these per quart. I'm not going to use a lot of hardener. I'll use about half of it. I guess it's about a quart. Yeah, set up real good. Now I'm going to be grabbing a strainer filter, throw away paper one. And hopefully this old press we've done works good. My HLVP, I had some cheap ones I bought from Harbor Freight, which actually sprayed pretty good, but where the discharge nozzle screws in, the threads are stripped. I like them because they have the canister upside down. There's this siphon style. Which it works. Both have their advantages and disadvantages as far as spray guns, siphon style, which is this, compared to the gravity fed with the canister up top. Gravity fed can be a problem when you have to turn your gun upside down for whatever reason. But almost filled it up to about there. Alright, before you say I'm not covering it good enough, this is just the first coat, which is usually a tack coat. Okay, that's after coat 2. As you can see, this spray gun is not the best pattern gun, but I've been playing with the volume and the spray pattern on it. It's been a long time since I used that gun. All I did was run some lacquer thinner to it. I should have took it apart. I didn't know I was going to be using it because my other gun messed up. But that's my old standby primer gun, and it always does pretty good. But you can see spray marks. So I'm trying to make it spray that last coat a little smoother, because that just makes it easier to sand. When your primer's rough and you're sanding with 400 to 600 grit, which is what I'll be using for final sanding before paint, that really makes it take twice as long to sand, fly harder. But it's not too awful rough. It just looks like a spray pattern. It's kind of smooth. But right now I just thought I'd turn the camera on to kill some time. See a little something there, which will hopefully sand out. But I just wanted to kill some time while I'm waiting 5 minutes curing between each coat, which is what the can recommends. So far it's going pretty good, which I didn't expect anything to go wrong, just spraying primer. And just like I said with all the last coats of primer, I will spray a guide coat on it after a couple days. I'm going to try to spray red on top of this black. I think that'll be easier to see. But from here on out, when I need to block sand a lot of stuff out, I'm using that color that they call buff. It looks like a yellow primer to me, and it's called buff. But that works really good with a gray guide coat on top of it. You can really see it easy. And then if you want a dark primer, if your paint is dark, which a lot of people like to do, you can always use that for your surface coat. So it'll be about time for me to do some more spraying. Okay, I ended up putting 4 coats on it, at least on the sides. Front, just 3, because it does not have to be absolutely perfect. No one's going to see it. I just want someone to be able to look inside there and see shiny paint, so they can say, hey, you did that right. But this covering of primer turned out okay. You see a spray mark right there. Now I know it looks like I shot it thin, but that's overspray. And if my memory serves me correct, that's the nature of that gun. It's just the way it is. I remember having trouble with it. I used to use it for my primer gun only. Never painted with it, and definitely will not paint this truck with it. I have a brand new DeBelvis right up there that I never opened the package for, and it's a gravity fed, so I will be painting the truck with it. At one time I had a really nice Sharp brand gun, and I used it a lot, and it did real nice. It was a siphon feed, but it finally got wore out and just did not work it well anymore, so I threw it away. But yeah, not bad. a little bit of rough on the primer, so it's going to cause me a little extra wet sanding. But good news is, no more. Well, I'm going to block it down with the fine. I'll use a block where I can. When you do your final fine sanding, you can block on flat areas, but a lot of little areas, you got to be careful and fold up some paper so that your fingerprints aren't in the paper, and be careful not to break through the edges, which I'll probably break through some a little bit. That's okay. But once I get it fine sanded, I'm going to hit it. When I paint, I'm going to hit it with some. I have some epoxy primer I ordered. Some 2 cans over there. One can is an activator, and one can is a primer. A lot of people like to recommend that you use it as like a sealer. You give it one thin tack coat, and then you start spraying your paint right over top of it. And that's what I plan to do. It's supposed to seal everything up, especially if you break through on the corners and got a little bit of bare metal shining through. Help seal that up, so they say. In my opinion, the paint will seal it also, but if everybody seems to say that's the way to go, I'll do it. So this will be all for this weekend, for all this video. And I guess the next thing we'll be doing while this cures, and I told you I still got to give it a guide coat, but I'm going to give it a couple days to cure, is we're going to get under here and prep the paint. We'll prep the underside. I got this sunlight shining in here where you can't see. And we're going to get this all painted with some 415. And I got some weld marks and stuff there. I think I'm just going to paint right over top of them. I wanted to get picky and make it look perfect, but if I go to doing too much under there, it may affect the top if I got to do any grinding or anything, which there's no grinding left. And I already did the bed braces like I mentioned in the last video. So that'll be the next thing we do, is get this underside painted. And I'm not looking forward to it, but we're going to have to start sanding down the primer on the inside of the bed, and we're going to use our 415 power liner. Hopefully this is enough for the whole bed. I might want to reread the instructions. It's showing half of it. I think that's just before and after, but hopefully that's going to turn out good. But they recommend anywhere from 80 to 100 grit for prepping the surface, and that's what we're going to have to do to this primer. I'm not looking forward to getting up there, in there, and sanding all that, but it's going to take some time, so that means it'll be a few weeks before I get around to doing any actual painting still. But I need to get the underside painted and the bed liner in here before final sanding and painting of the bed and the cab, which will be done together. And then the bed will go on it, and then we'll be able to pull the truck in and out. We'll assemble what we can, but we need to get our doors and fenders, the hood painted, tailgate, and a couple other small pieces. Hinges, which they were hanging in here. I'll have to hunt them down. But, alright, thanks for watching.